Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this episode I will be deploying a Linux server that will be used to provide DNS and time services to the SecNet network. This video was part of my series on building an enterprise network. If you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe, and if you like this video, please remember to hit that like button. First up, I'm going to configure the firewall and the policies. So we are going to create a couple rules for the new Linux server that I'm building. And I'm thinking I'm going to put it under here. So I'm going to add a new rule, and I'm going to call this create two rules. Trying to think how I want to do this. So this will be from DNS servers to when thinking I'm just going to call this DNS servers for now. So I'm going to create the rule under here, and I think I'm going to call this DNS servers. Now I might rename that later, but this is going to be interzone rule. This rule is going to be from the server network to from two servers that we're going to build in a minute. First one is going to be hq dns1.secnetwork.org, and I'm going to copy that. IP address is going to be 10.0.51.11. And then I'm going to create another address, and this is going to be 2 10.0.51.12. Alright, and what I'm going to do is destination. This is going out to the WAN. And I don't have a destination address, so I'll leave that open. Service is going to be DNS. I'm sorry, the application is going to be DNS. We're going to leave the defaults, and I'm going to leave that. And then I think I'm going to clone this rule and create another rule for time. Normally I would split these roles, but because I don't have a lot of resources, and time is a lightweight service anyway, I'm just going to put them on the same server. So time is just going to be on the DNS server. So application, and then we'll change this to NTP. And again, I don't have destination addresses, so we'll leave that open. Application defaults, and that is that. Alright, so what this does is this allows the DNS server to go out and look up DNS and NTP for time. So now what we need is a rule, which I'll put under Active Directory. So we're going to add a rule, and this will be secnet. Actually, we'll say from the so from active, so from active directory so from Active Directory to DNS servers. Actually, I'm going to change this to, so this rule will be from the PDC servers to the DNS servers. So from PDC to DNS, this will be an interzone rule. The source will be AAA, and then we'll select the domain controllers, and the destination is to the server, and we'll select the 2 DNS servers. Alright, application is going to be DNS. Application defaults and allow. And then I'm going to create another rule. So I'm actually going to clone it. And I'm going to call this NTP. And then we change the application to NTP. Alright, and we'll leave the rest as it is. So there's our 2 new rules for DNS and time. So now what I'm going to do is go into DNS for the AD DNS servers, and I'm going to create these A records. So HQ DNS1, this will be 10.0 5111, and then HQ DNS2 10.5112, and now I need NTP as well, so let's just create them as A records. So actually NTP1 we'll do HQ. I don't want to do that. So I'll do NTP1, point it to the same server. Actually, so for time, I'm going to create a CNAME. This will be NTP1. Since it's not a server, I'm not going to put HQ in front. And then select DNS1. Create another CNAME, NTP2. And select the second DNS. Alright. So that's good for that. So right now NTP is pointing out. So we are going to remove this. point NTP to the two I don't know if that would work. A CNAME of a CNAME. That's probably not good practice. Let's not do that. Because there are cases where I do need a CNAME. So let's do NTP and point this to directly to the server, a record. And then point this to the other server's a record. It can only be one. So I'm going to create this as an a record then. NTP dot NTP 10.0.51.11 NTP 51.12. Alright, looks like that's the way we're gonna do that. And so that should look like, we do an NS lookup on NTP, we should get both addresses, so that's good. And then HQ, NGT1, I'm sorry, HQ, alright. So if we do NTP, that's what I expect to see, and then if I do a NTP1, NTP2, perfect. Alright, so DNS I think is straight. Now before I commit this, there's some rules I have to fix. So let's just go through this again real quick. Alright, so we have our two rules that allow the DNS servers to go out to the internet. And then we have our two rules to let the domain controllers talk to the DNS and time server. And the reason why I split these rules up, which I don't want to forget, is there are more than just the domain controllers that need to be able to talk to the DNS server. So I believe it's management. So for the appliances, network devices and any appliances, they'll point to the time servers direct. Trying to think if there's anything else. User service not needed. So AAA, DMZ, management server. So really it's just those two. Alright. So okay, so now what I want to do is clean up some of these temporary rules. So this one would get cleaned up a little bit. So for DNS and time would be removed, but before I do that, let's build the servers and test, and then we'll clean up the rest. Alright, so I'm already logged into vCenter, and we are going to build this off of the CentOS 8 template. So what I'm going to do is clone this to a new VM. I'm going to call this HQDNS1. So I'm going to call this HQDNS1. Let's do that again. So I'm going to call this HQDNS1 and hit next, next. Excuse me. Next, and I'm not going to do anything there or there. And then I'm going to clone 2. And again, ordinarily what I would do is I would put one DNS server on one host and the other on the other host. But for now, I'll just build them both on this one host, and hopefully in the near future I can add in another host and move off the other pair. Alright, so the two hosts are finished. I'm going to power the first one on. And then I'm going to use PuTTY. Let's see, what am I remoted into here? Nothing. So I'm going to jump into this server as soon as actually this is joined, so I can just log in with my username. And like that, I'm in. I haven't had a chance to move the Ansible scripts over to my account yet, but I will do that at some point, probably offline. So I probably forgot to mention, I am planning to deploy this system, deploy these services through Ansible as a role. So first thing I have to do, let's get out of that, is update its hostname and its IP address, which I'm going to do right now. So let's jump over here, 10.0.51.250, admin, admin, my password. Alright, so we're going to do hostname, CTL, set hostname, hqdns1.secnetwork.org, and then vim etc sysconfig network scripts iocfg ens192, change this to 11, and then update the host file, which actually I typed correctly, so 10.0.51.11, and this will be hqdns1.secnetwork.org, hqdns1. Alright, and I'm going to shut down on this H now. I'm sorry, R now. Okay, so that's one server close to ready, and then let's power this guy back on. Power on. One thing I need to find really quick. Excuse me. Alright, so I think we can restart this. Log in as LAdmin again. Go grab my password. And sudo issue. Alright, so hostname CTL, set hostname HQ DNS2, secnetwork.org, and then it was vim etc sysconfig network scripts .scfg ENS182, and this would be .12. Alright, and then the host file, etc hosts 10.0.51.12, and this will be HQDNS2, that's secnetwork.org, HQDNS2. Alright, shut down -HR now, and now we have 2 servers and all the fun. So I know I made this bigger, but I'm going to make it a little bigger again. Appearance, change this to 16 maybe. Let's try 16. Don't want to make it too big. Alright, so let's run everything in Tmux. Okay, so what I want to do is, before I can do anything, I need to update the inventory file, so let's do that real quick. So I'm actually done with this. So we're going to create one for DNS. Yeah, I'm just going to make it DNS. And this will be hqdns1.secnetwork.org. And I'm going to try that first, hqdns2, that's secnetwork.org. I shouldn't need to do anything else on this. Alright, so first things first, let's test. So let's do Ansible DNS-mping. So we have to do Ansible host equals, I'm just going to copy and paste, Ansible host equals, let's copy and paste, let's try that, see if we have any better luck. Oh, sorry, I have to be up here to run this. So yes. Okay, so we got one. What's going on with the other server? Okay, so that's right. 10.0.51.11 and 51.12. Not quite sure why. Let's take a look at this. Let's turn this off. Alright, so we got both servers. Now, let me do something. What do I want to do? Let me take this out, see if it still works. Alright, so I like that idea better. So we're going to do vim inventory hosts, and I'm going to get this out of here. I don't like it, and it doesn't, it's not necessary. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is run our domain join playbook. So let's do that. Ansible playbook -l DNS playbooks domain joined, and let me grab the password for that account. And paste that in, and we're going to hopefully domain join these two systems. So I'm going to speed up the footage and come back once this is ready. And just like that, we have two domain join servers. So let's test that before we proceed. This should just be hqdns1.secnetwork.org. Yes, and then I'm going to log in as me. And just like that, I am in sudo. So that is exactly what I want. Alright, so next step is Ansible playbook, L DNS, and then playbook. Sorry, role. Oh, before I run the role, excuse me, let me talk about the role. So I created a DNS server role, and I created, I think, 2 tasks. So let's take a look at the DNS task. So DNS task is pretty straightforward. First thing I do is install bind, and then I copy over the config file. Then we open up the firewall, enable bind to run at start, and start bind. So pretty straightforward. And then the next thing I do is execute NTP. So what this does is it copies the time config file, opens NTP up for the firewall, and restarts the service. And then let's take a look at the files. So let's take a look at DNS. Let's kill that. So this is pretty straightforward. I am by no means a DNS expert, but this has worked for me in the past. So if anybody knows of a better, more secure way to run bind, please leave a comment down below. But what this is doing is it's listening on 53 on any port. We're allowing queries from within the network, and that's really all there is to this. And let's take a look at the time config file. So what this is doing is it's connecting to the main ntp.org time servers for 0, 1, and 2. And then we are allowing anybody from the network to leverage this as a time server. So if we get back to the root, and we run Ansible playbook -l DNS roles DNS server tasks main. See what we have. And again, I'll let this run and come back once it's done. And it is done. It didn't take much time at all. So now what I want to do is jump back on over to HQ dns1.secnetwork.org and log in real quick. Alright, and let's take a quick look. So if we run a firewall cmd list service, we should see DNS and NTP are listed, and then if we run, let me maximize this. If we run ss -al n, let's just try that. There we go. Grip for time, we can see it's open, and then the same thing for DNS. We can see it's open. But though, I do want to double check this. This isn't established, which is interesting. So let me pull up a couple commands. CHRONYC sources. Alright, and we can see we're able to communicate out. While we're doing that, let's jump back over to the firewall, and for the external rules, let's go ahead and refresh. There we go. We can see traffic going out for both of these. So now what we have to do is configure. Actually, before we do that, let me open up a command prompt and let's look up. We're going to change the server to 10.0.53.11, and as you can see, it picked up. And then we want to query, let's just query google.com. It might be. Let's log into the domain controller. Okay, this is interesting. Let's take a look. Alright, so that resolved. So it is working the way it's supposed to. So let's also also check server 10.0.51.12, and let's do ns lookup. Let's do and alright, so it works from the correct server, which is good. So it's definitely working where it needs to. So what I'm going to do is remove these forwarders. And I'm going to do DNS HQ DNS1.sec.org. And we can get rid of the IPv6 and do this for 2. Alright, so that's great. We have our forwarders. And actually, I want to get rid of these two guys. And the only other thing we need to do is connect to the other domain controller, HQPDC2, and do the same thing. Change the forwarders. Delete. So what we want is HQ DNS1.sec.org and 2. I'm not sure why it is. There we go. That took a really long time. Alright, so what I'm going to do is clear the cache on both of these guys. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm pretty sure I have to run this as an admin, is check the time. So, if I'm not mistaken, the PDC emulator is pointing to ntp.secnetwork.org. Let me try this command. Alright, it looks like it's supposed to. So last command to try, w32tm query status. Let's try resync. Yep, get rid of query first. Sweet. Alright. Very good. So we tested time, we tested DNS. So now we can clean up some of the rules that we have. Excuse me. Alright, so now that that's done, I'm going to clean up some of these test rules for the domain controller. First, this is so the firewall can get DNS and time. So let's go fix that real quick. So for DNS, we're going to stick to 10.0.31.12 for DNS, and then for time, we're going to point to 10.0.51.11 we don't need this policy anymore. So it's one less thing that we have to allow out to the internet. And the same thing for this rule. I'm going to get rid of this and this. So let me just do this. Let me just take a look at all the temp rules that are in place right now and see how many of them are still needed. So we have an update rule saying that these systems can update. So actually that's no longer needed because we have a permanent Yum repository. So the only thing left to really work on from a temp rule is the domain controller getting updates, and this management laptop that I'm using to get into the admin server. So once I've solved this problem, I will be able to delete, I think, all of these unneeded rules. And let's see. All right, well, I think, so let's commit this. All right, so let's jump back over here. Okay, so I think that's going to conclude this video. And again, in this video, we built a Linux server that will be used to provide DNS and time services to the SACnet network. And we did it using Ansible. So again, the Ansible role that I use to deploy this will be on my will be on my GitHub repository, which I will link either in the description or you can get to it from my website. So that is going to conclude this video. If you like this video, please remember to hit the like button, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, please remember to subscribe. Thank you, and see you next time.